Hi, welcome to this Corbettmaths video. In this video, we're going to look at the video solutions to the Corbettmaths Practice Questions on Drawing Quadratic Graphs. If you need any extra help on how to draw quadratic graphs, if you go to Corbettmaths and go to the Videos and Worksheets section and scroll down to video number 264, there's a dedicated video tutorial there on drawing quadratic graphs. Alternatively, you could scan this QR code. But in this video, we're going to focus on the video solutions to the practice questions, so let's get started. Okay, question number one. Question number one says the table shows information about some points that lie on the graph y equals x squared. So we've got the x coordinates and the y coordinates, and each pair make the coordinates of a point. So here we've got the point -3, 9, -2, 4, -1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 4, and 3, 9. And if you think back to drawing linear graphs, you'll be used to these xy tables. And the question is to draw the graph of y equals x squared for the values of x from -3 to 3. So in other words, we need to plot these points on the grid, and then we're going to draw a curve through them. Okay, so let's start off with the first point. The first point has got coordinates -3, 9. So if we go down to the graph, we're going to go -3 across and then 9 up. So if we go -3 across and 9 up, that would be here. So let's plot that point. So that's the first point. The next point, if we go up again, it was -2, 4. So -2 across, 4 up. So -2 across and 4 up would be there. The next point was -1, 1. So that will be there. The next point was 0, 0. The next point was 1, 1. The next point was the point with coordinates 2, 4. And the last point was 3, 9. So that'll be up there. Okay, so that's fantastic. So we've drawn our points, and as you can see, they form this U-shaped parabola. So remember, quadratic graphs have a parabola shape. That U-shape is called a parabola. And we're going to draw a nice curve through them. Now, do this the best you can. Don't spend too long trying to do it. Don't try and make it perfect whenever you draw it. Just try and draw the best curve you can through those points. So it looks something like this. And that's it. So that's my U-shaped parabola. And as you can see, that curve goes down through those points, reaches the bottom point here, the minimum point at the point 0, 0, the origin, and then curves back up again. And that's it. And whenever I drew that, it was on the computer, so it's quite tricky. So it's not absolutely perfect. As you can see, that curve there, I wouldn't say it's absolutely fantastic there, but it's the best that I can do. And whenever you draw on these quadratic graphs in the exam, just make sure you plot the points and do the best curve you can through them. And that's it. And try and make sure that the curves go through the points. So that's quite important. You're trying to go through the points. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question. Okay, question number 2. So question number 2 says, part A says, complete the table of values for y equals x squared subtract 1. So that's saying that the y coordinate is the x coordinate squared subtract 1. So let's check it. If you square 2, you get 4, and then subtract 1 is 3. So that's why 3 is the y coordinate there. Okay, so we've been asked to complete the table, so we need to square the x coordinates and then subtract 1. So 3 squared is 9, subtract 1 is 8. 1 squared is 1, subtract 1 is 0. And -1 squared, remember, a negative times a negative is a positive, so -1 times -1 is 1, subtract 1 is 0, and that's it. And as you can see here, we've got 3, 8, 2, 3, 1, 0, 0, -1, -1, 0, and -2, 3. And as you can see, the point 0, -1, that would be the minimum point of this U-shaped parabola because it's the lowest one. And then remember that a parabola is symmetrical, so because it goes -1, 0, and 1, 0, that's quite nice. We've got the symmetry there, -2, 3, and 2, 3, and so on. So let's plot those points. So -2, 3 would be there. That's the first point. The next point was -1, 0, so -1, 0 would be there. The next point, 0, -1, so 0, -1 is there. 1, 0 is there, 2, 3 is there, and the last point was 3, 8. So 3 across, 8 up would be there. And that's it. So we've plotted the points. Now we need to draw a curve. So we draw a curve through those points. So let's do that. And that's it. So we've drawn that curve. So we've got our U-shaped parabola. It has the minimum point there at 0, -1. And that's it. That's our graph. We've plotted our points and we've drawn a nice curve through them. And I've done the best I can on the computer here. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 3. So question number 3, we've been asked to complete the table of values for y equals x squared plus x. So here we've got our xy table, and we've got some x coordinates and some y coordinates, and some of the y coordinates are missing. So the one for whenever x is equal to -2, the y coordinate's missing. Whenever x is equal to 0, the value for y is missing. And whenever x is equal to 3, the value of y is missing. Okay, so let's work out each of these. I'm going to start off with 3. So I'm going to do 3 squared plus 3. Because to find y, we're going to do x squared plus x. We're going to square this number, and then we're going to add it. So we're going to do 3 squared plus 3. And 3 squared is 9 plus 3 is equal to 12. So that'd be equal to 12. Next, 0, so we'd have 0 squared plus 0, and 0 squared is 0 plus 0 is 0, so that'll be 0. And then finally, negative 2, so we would do negative 2 squared plus negative 2, so we would do negative 2 squared plus negative 2. Now, be very careful with these negative ones, because whenever you're squaring a negative times a negative is a positive, so negative 2 times negative 2 is 4, and then we're going to add negative 2. And when we add negative 2, it actually goes down 2, so we're going to go down 2, so if we're at 4 and we go down 2, it'll be equal to 2. And another way to check it is to notice, remember the quadratic graph is symmetrical, so because we had 0 and 0, and this is 6 and 6, then that's going to be 2 and 2, and then if that's 12, so whenever x is equal to negative 4, y would be 12 as well. So the fact that it's symmetrical actually then just verifies that we've got that right. And then if we go down, part B says, on the grid, draw the graph of y equals x squared plus x for values of x from negative 3 to 3. So in other words, plot these points. So because it goes from negative 3 to 3, so we're going to plot these points. Negative 3, 6, negative 2, 2, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 2, 6, and 3, 12. And then if we plot those points on the graph, then we can just do a nice curve through them. So let's do that. So let's start off with negative 3, 6. So if we go down, so negative 3, 6 would be there. Next, the next one was negative 2, 2. So negative 2, 2 would be there. And then 1, 0, and 0, 0. And then 1, 2, and then 2, 6, and then finally 3, what was that again? It was 12, so 3, 12. And these get quite big quite quickly, these quadratics, so as you can see it's getting quite steep there, and then the next one will be steeper and so on. Okay, so we've plotted the points, now let's do a nice curve through them. So I'm going to do the curve here, and that's it, that's my curve. And that's the best I can do on the computer there. I'm just looking at this part here, it's not necessarily the best, but it goes through the points and it's got that U-shaped parabola. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 4. Okay, so question number 4, we've been asked to complete the table of values for y equals x squared minus 3x, and we've got this xy table, and we need to find these missing values. Now, going back to our last one and the one before, whenever we talked about the parabola being symmetrical, here we've got 0 and 0. So that means that I think this one here is going to be negative 2. When I say I think, I know it's going to be negative 2. And then this value should be the same as this one. Okay, so let's actually work them out and just check that. So we've got x squared subtract 3x. So we're going to square the x number, and then we're going to take away 3 times the x number. So if x is equal to 2, we would do 2 squared subtract 3 times 2. 2 squared is equal to 4, and then we're going to take away 3 times 2 is 6, and then if we do 4, take away 6, that's equal to negative 2. So that'll be negative 2. So that's that point, 2, negative 2. This one here, 4, so we're going to do 4 squared subtract 3 times 4. So 4 squared subtract 3 times 4. 4 squared is 16, so we've got 16, take away 12, and 16 take away 12 is equal to 4, so that'll be 4. Okay, so let's work out our next one, so negative 1. So we've then got x squared subtract 3 times x, so it's going to be negative 1 squared, take away 3 times negative 1, so it's going to be negative 1 squared, take away 3 times negative 1. So negative 1 squared, well, that's a negative times a negative, which is a positive, so it's going to be 1. And then we're going to then take away 3 times negative 1. Well, 3 times negative 1 is negative 3, so we're subtracting negative 3. And 1 minus 3 would be 1 plus 3 is equal to 4. And that's fantastic, because as we mentioned earlier, that gives us our symmetrical heights. We've got the negative 2 and the 2, the 0, the 0, the 4 and the 4. That's not always the case. Sometimes you might have coefficients of x squareds and numbers, and whenever you put the values in, you might actually find that the values aren't symmetrical. But if there's a symmetrical pattern here, like negative 2 and 2 and 0 and 0, well, then it would be 4 and 4. They would have to be the same then once you notice it is symmetrical. Okay, so let's plot our points here. So if we go on down, we have got here 4, 4. So let's plot that. And then we've got 3, 0. So 3, 0 will be there. 2, negative 2. 2, negative 2 would be there. 1, negative 2. 1, negative 2 would be there. We had 0, 0. The origin is there. And then negative 2, 10 would be up there. So we've plotted all the points. Now we just need to do the curve through them. So let's do that. And that's it. That's our parabola, our U-shaped parabola, and it goes through our points and it has that U-shape. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question. Okay, question number 5. Question number 5 said, Adam wants to draw the graph of y equals x squared minus x plus 2. And he drew this graph. So we've got this graph here, and as you can see, he's plotted the points. He's actually joined the points up with a ruler, so he's joined up that point to that point with a ruler, that point to that point. He's gone straight across there, and actually a quadratic graph will go down and then back up again. There would have to be a minimum point, not a whole series of minimum points, and then it would go up and up and up and so on. Just to mention, it could also have a maximum point if it's a negative x squared graph, and we'll look at some of those later. But as you can see here, Adam's actually joined those points up using a ruler. And then if we carry on, we're asked to write down 2 criticisms of Adam's graph. So I want to give 2 criticisms. Well, one, he's joined the points up with a ruler, so he's used straight lines rather than curves. Let's write that down. So I've just written down that Adam has used straight lines to join the points. He should have used a curve, so he shouldn't have used these straight lines. He should have used a curve. The other criticism I'm going to mention is actually focusing this flat bottom of the graph, the fact that the graph doesn't go down to a minimum point and rise up again. So this shouldn't be a horizontal line. It should go down below the height of 2 and then come back up again. So I've just written down criticism number 2. The line joining 0, 2 and 1, 2 is horizontal. It should be a curve that dips down below the height of 2 and then back up again. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 6. So question number 6, we've been asked to complete the table of values for y equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. And we've got our xy table, and we've got our values of x going from -3 to 3, and we want to find our values of y. So to find each value of y, we need to square the x value, then add 2 times the x value, and then plus 1. So for instance, whenever x is equal to 3, we would do 3 squared plus 2 times 3 plus 1. I'm just going to put that in a bracket there. So we do 3 squared is equal to 9 plus 2 times 3 is equal to 6, and then we've got plus 1. And 9 plus 6 is equal to 15 plus 1 is 16. So that'll be equal to 16 there. Whenever x is equal to 2, we would do 2 squared plus 2 times 2 plus 1 and so on. Now this is a calculator question, so we can actually just type these into our calculator and work out what they are. Now just be careful whenever you're typing in the negative values to put them in brackets. So for instance, if I was working at this one on my calculator, I would open up my bracket, I would type in -3 close brackets and then squared and then plus and then 2 bracket -3. That means 2 times -3. You could put it at times there if you wanted to, and then plus 1. And then if you type that into your calculator, you get your answer. So whenever you work out each of these on your calculator, let's see what you would get. So whenever we work this out, we get that's equal to 4, because -3 squared is 9, plus 2 times -3, that's -6, so 9 plus -6 is 3, and then plus 1 is 4, and so on. And then whenever x is equal to -2, if you type that in, and you type in -2 squared plus 2 times -2 plus 1, you get that's equal to 1. And whenever x is equal to -1, you'll get that y is equal to 0. Whenever x is equal to 0, you get 0 squared plus 2 times 0 plus 1, so that'll be equal to 1. Okay, next, whenever x is equal to 1, we get 1 squared, which is equal to 1, plus 2 times 1, that's 2, and then add 1, so when we work that out, we get that's equal to 4. And then our last one, whenever x is equal to 2, whenever you do 2 squared plus 2 times 2 plus 1, you get that's equal to 9, and that's it. So we just use our calculator to work those out, and just be careful, particularly whenever you're dealing with negative values of x, that you make sure you include your brackets. So if you were to type in -3 squared on your calculator, it would work out 3 squared, and then make it negative and give you an answer of -9. But actually what we're trying to do is we want to work out what -3 squared is. I remember a negative times a negative is a positive, so if you type that into your calculator, you get the answer of 9. Okay, so it's just important that you're careful, particularly with those negatives. Also, lots of calculators have a table function, so you're able to type in y equals x squared plus 2x plus 1, put that into your calculator, and then choose the values of x from -3 to 3, and it'll generate these values for you. And it's quite useful to be able to do that as well. And if you go to Corbettmaths, there'll be a video on how to do that. Okay, let's look at part B. Part B then says to draw the graph, so we need to plot these points. So -3, 4, so -3, 4 would be there. -2, 1 would be there. -1, 0 is there. 0, 1 would be there. 1, 4 would be there. 2, 9 would be here, and finally 3, 16 would be up there. So we've plotted our points, now we just need to do a curve through them. So let's do that. And that's it, that's our graph. So we've drawn the graph of y equals x squared, that's y equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. And we've drawn it for values of x from -3 to 3. And actually we've gone a little bit further, but that's okay. And that's it, so let's have a look at our next question, question number 7. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 7. So question number 7, we've been asked to draw the graph of y equals x squared plus x plus 2 for the values of x from -3 to 3. Now this time, this question doesn't have an xy table, so we're going to have to make one ourselves. So we're going to do x and y. We're going from -3 to 3, so -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So that's our x values, our x coordinates. Now let's find our y coordinates. So it's a calculator question, so that's quite nice. So 3 squared plus 3 plus 2, well 3 squared is 9, plus 3 is equal to 12, plus 2 is equal to 14. Or again, you can just type it into your calculator. So that's the coordinates of our first point, 3, 14. Okay, then if you were to do 2 on your calculator, you get that's equal to 8. If you do 1, that's equal to 4. If you do 0, that's going to be equal to 2, obviously, because 0 squared plus 0 is 0, plus 2 is equal to 0. Minus 1, and again, be careful whenever you type that minus 1 into your calculator, because you have to be minus 1 in brackets, then make sure you close your brackets, then squared, plus, and then negative 1 in brackets, plus 2. And whenever you type that into your calculator, you're going to get 2 as well. Now, you notice there's a bit of a pattern here. If that's 2 and 2, that's going to be 4 there, and then if that's 8 there, that's going to be 8 there. So they're the coordinates of our points. Now let's plot them. So negative 3, 8. So negative 3, 8 will be there. Okay, next, negative 2, 4. So negative 2, 4 would be there. Next, negative 1, 2. Well, negative 1, 2 would be there. 0, 2 would be there. Then we've got 1, 4. We have 2, 8. And finally, we have 3, 14. So 3, 14 would be there. So that's our points plotted. So that's fantastic. Now we just need to do a nice curve through them. So let's do that. And that's it. So that's the graph of y equals x squared, y equals x squared plus x plus 2. And it's that U-shaped parabola, And if we go on down, that's it. That's that question done. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 8. So part A, again, we've been asked to draw a quadratic, y equals x squared plus 2x minus 2 for values of x from negative 3 to 3. So again, let's do an xy table, x and y, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And to work out our y coordinates, we're going to square the x coordinates, add 2 times the x coordinate, and then take away 2. So we're going to do 3 squared plus 2 times 3, take away 2. And again, we can do this on the calculator. And I'm just going to use the table mode of my calculator. So on the table mode, I've just typed in f of x, or defined f of x as x squared plus 2x minus 2. And then I've gone to the table mode of my calculator, and I'm just typing in 3, 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. And that's fantastic. And then whenever I look at my table, I can see it says 3, 13. And let's just check that. 3 squared is 9, plus 6 is equal to 15, take away 2 is 13. 2 squared is 4, plus another 4 is 8, take away 2 is 6, and so on. So 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 2, and that's fantastic. You can see then there's a pattern forming. The next one then would be 1. So let's plot our points. So that's it, we've plotted our points. Now we just need to do a curve through them. So let's do that. And that's it, that's our U-shaped parabola, that's our graph. And that's our graph of y equals x squared plus 2x minus 2. And if we go down to part B says write down the coordinates of the minimum point of y equals x squared plus 2x minus 1. So the minimum point is the lowest point of that quadratic graph, and as you can see, it's that point there. And that was the point negative 1, negative 3. So that's the point negative 1, negative 3. And that's it, that's the coordinates of that minimum point, negative 1, negative 3. Now sometimes the question may be worded in a slightly different way. Rather than asking you for the coordinates of the minimum point, they may ask you for the coordinates of the stationary point or the coordinates of the turning point, and they would all be the same thing, that negative 1, negative 3, where the graph turns or where it's stationary, the gradient doesn't change, or the lowest point, the minimum point. And that's it, negative 1, negative 3. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 9. So question number 9, part A says complete the table of values for y equals 3x squared plus 1. So here we've got our xy table, and we've got 2 missing values here and here, and we need to work out what y is whenever x is equal to negative 1, and we need to work out what y is whenever x is equal to 2. So we've got 3x squared plus 1. So to work out what y is, we need to do x squared and then multiply by 3, because remember our order of operations, we need to do any orders, any powers, before we then multiply by 3. So we're going to square the value of x and then times by 3, and then we're going to plus 1. So for instance, whenever x is equal to 2, we're going to do 3 multiplied by 2 squared and then plus 1. 2 squared, remember our order of operations, we've got to square first. So working out the 2 squared first of all, 2 squared is 4, so we've got 3 times 4 and then plus 1. And 3 times 4 is equal to 12, plus 1 is equal to 13. So that means whenever x is equal to 2, y would be equal to 13. So what we've done is we've just squared 2, which is 4, times by 3, which is 12, and then added 1. So we've worked out that missing value. And then looking at this, if we've got 13 here and here, if this is 4, then this should be 4. So let's work that out. So if x is equal to negative 1, we'd have 3 multiplied by negative 1 squared plus 1. Negative 1 squared is negative 1 times negative 1, which is 1, times 3 is equal to 3, plus 1 is equal to 4. So it would be equal to 4. And that's it. So we've worked out those missing values. So now on the grid below, we need to plot those points. So let's do that. So we've got 2, 13. So let's plot that one. 2 across, 13 up would be there. Then we have 1, 4. So that's 1 across 4 up would be there. Next, we've got 0, 1, so 0, 1 would be there. Then negative 1, 4 would be there. And then negative 2, 13 would be there. So we've plotted our points. Now let's draw a curve through them. And that's it, that's my curve, and that's the best that I can do on the computer. So that's the graph of y equals 3x squared plus 1. So it's important whenever you've got a coefficient of x squared, a number in front of the x squared other than 1, so here we've got 3x squared, we need to square the values of x first of all, and then times them by 3, and then add 1. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 10. So question number 10, we've been asked to complete the value of tables for y equals 4 subtract x squared. So this time, rather than being x squared, we've got a minus x squared. And you're going to see that that changes the shape of the quadratic graph. So rather than being a U-shaped parabola, we're going to get an N-shaped parabola. So it's going to be the other way around. So let's have a look at this. So we've got our table of values, and we're only missing two values here, for 2 and for negative 2. Actually, we notice here we've got our 4 and 3 and 3. So it should be that this value is the same as this one. So let's have a look and see. So whenever x equals 2, we're going to have 4 subtract x squared. So 4 subtract 2 squared. 2 squared is 4, so we get 4 take away 4, and 4 take away 4 is equal to 0. So that's value is going to be 0. So whenever x equals 2, y is equal to 0. Okay, so that's that one. Now we should find that this is 0 as well, but let's have a look. We're going to do 4 subtract negative 2. I'm just going to put that in brackets, negative 2 squared. It's very important to remember those brackets around those negative numbers before you square them. So we're going to do 4 subtract negative 2 squared. Negative 2 squared, that's negative 2 times negative 2, and a negative times a negative is a positive, and 2 times 2 is 4, so we're going to get 4 take away 4. And again, 4 take away 4 is equal to 0. So that's it. And then part B, we've been asked to draw the graph on the grid below. So we need to plot these points and draw the graph. So we've got 2, 0, so 2, 0 would be there. We've then got 1, 3, so 1, 3 would be here. 0, 4 is there. Negative 1, 3 is there. Negative 2, 0 is there. And just go back up here, we've got our negative 3, negative 5. So negative 3, negative 5 is down there. And if you actually did plot 3, it would be negative 5 as well. It would be symmetrical. So let's then draw a graph. And that's it. So we've plotted our points and we're drawing our graph. So that is the graph of y equals 4 subtract x squared. And as you can see, because it's a minus x squared, the number in front of the x squared is a negative. This is minus 1x squared, so it's a minus x squared graph. If it's a minus x squared graph, or if the coefficient, the number in front of the x squared is negative, it has this N shape. So the ones we've looked at so far have all had just an x squared, so they have been a U-shaped parabola. Even 3x squared is a U-shaped parabola, but whenever it's a negative in front of the x squared, it has this N shape, parabola. Okay, let's look at our next question. So question number 11 says, complete the table of values for y equals x squared minus 5x plus 4. So we've got our xy table and we've got some missing values here. So to work out the y values, we're going to square the x value, then we're going to take away 5 times the x value, and then add 4. So for instance, if x equal to 4, we would do 4 squared, that's 16. We would then take away 5 times 4, that's 20, and we would add 4. And whenever we do 16 take away 20, that's negative 4, plus 4 would be 0. So that would go there. If we've got x equal to 3, we would do 3 squared, which is 9, subtract 5 times 3, which is subtract 15, plus 4. And then 9 take away 15 is negative 6, plus 4 is equal to negative 2. So it would be negative 2 there. And again, it's a calculator question, so you could work these out on your calculator. And if you work these out on a calculator, you'd get, if x equal to 2, you get y is equal to negative 2. You'll find that this is equal to 0, and you can see there's a pattern here. The next one here, you'd get that's equal to 4. Yeah, I can work that out quite quickly, actually. 0 squared take away 5 times 0 is 0, plus 4 is equal to 4. And then if you have negative 1, well, negative 1 squared is 1. Take away 5 times negative 1, so that'll be 1 take away negative 5, which is 6, plus 4 is equal to 10. And again, you've got your calculator to work these out. And the next one will be equal to 18. And that's it. And then part B says to draw the graph. So let's plot those points and draw a nice curve through them. Okay, so we've now plotted our points. Now we just need to draw a curve through those points. So let's do that. And that's it. So that's our graph of y equals x squared minus 5x plus 4. And then if we go on down, we're told to write down the equation of the line of symmetry of y equals x squared minus 5x plus 4. So we want to find out where the line of symmetry is. Now remember, with these parabolas I mentioned earlier, it's got a line of symmetry. And the line of symmetry, well, the minimum point is here at 2.5 something. We can actually read it off if we wanted to. But it's going to have a line of symmetry down here. This is where the line of symmetry would be. And actually, if you were to carry on the graph here, you'd find that it would actually rise up in the same manner on the right hand side as it does on the left hand side. So the line of symmetry will be here. It'll pass through here, 2.5 on the x-axis. So this vertical line is the line with equation x equals 2.5. And that's it. So if you find where that minimum point would be, and because it's symmetrical and you know that it passes through 2, -2 and 3, -2, then the minimum point would have to be in the middle here, which would be 2.5 something. And then that means that the line of symmetry would pass through that minimum point. So that is the line with equation. It's a vertical line that passes through the x-axis at 2.5. So this line has got equation x equals 2.5. And that's it. So let's write that down. Okay, let's look at our next question. Okay, let's have a look at our next question, question number 12. So question number 12, we've been asked to circle the point that does not lie on the graph with equation y equals x squared minus 5x plus 3. And we've got the coordinates of 4 points. We've got the point with coordinates -5, 53, -19, 0, 2, and 2, -3. Okay, so what we just need to do is, well, we've got our x coordinates and our y coordinates for each of these points. So we've got our x and y coordinates for each of them. All we need to do is take our x coordinate, -5, substitute it into the quadratic and see if we get the right y coordinate. So if we substitute in -5 into here, and it's a calculator question, so that's quite nice. So we just need to do -5 squared, so -5 squared, minus 5x, so minus 5 times -5, and then plus 3. And then if we type that into our calculator, let's see what we get. 53. So that's fantastic. So that point is on the graph with that equation. Okay, now if x is equal to -1, we're going to do -1, close brackets squared, minus, and then 5 times -1, and then plus 3. And then if we type that into our calculator, well, I'm just going to go back and change the -5s to -1s and what I previously typed, just a little bit of a shortcut. And then if you press equals, we get that's equal to 9. So that point is also on the graph of equation y equals x squared minus 5x plus 3. Okay, we've now got 0, 2. Now this point I know is not on this graph because it's 0 across, 2 up. And if you substitute in 0 here, we get 0 squared, which is 0, subtract 5 times 0, so that's 0, plus 3. It would be equal to 3, so that would be the point 0, 3. So the graph can't pass through 0, 2 and 0, 3. So that point is not on the graph because if x is equal to 0, y would be equal to 3, not 2. So that point is not on the graph with that equation. So I'm going to circle that one. And just to show you here, if you do 2 squared, that's 4, subtract 5 times 2, so that's subtract 10, plus 3. And if we work that out, 4 take away 10 is -6, plus 3 is -3. So that point is on that graph as well. So that's it. So the point that does not lie on the graph is the point 0, 2. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 13. Okay, so this time we've been asked to circle the point that lies on the graph of equation y equals 2x squared plus x minus 1. So one of these points does lie on this graph. So let's substitute in our x coordinates and see if we get the right y coordinates. So let's substitute in the x coordinates into here and see what we get. So I'm going to start off with this one. So if x is equal to 3, we're going to do 2 times 3 squared plus 3 take away 1. So 2 times 3 squared plus 3 take away 1, just replacing the x with 3. So 3 squared, remember our order of operations, we've got a square before we multiply. So 3 squared is equal to 9, times 2 is 18, so we've got 18, plus 3, that's equal to 21, take away 1 is equal to 20. So we've actually got the right answer there straight away. I just happened to start with this one this time because we had an x value that was positive, so it was a little bit easier to start with that one. And we got the answer of 20, so that point does lie on that graph. If you were to substitute in 2, you would get 2 squared, which is 4, times 2 is 8, plus 2 is equal to 10, take away 1 is 9. If x equal to 1, you get 1 squared is 1, times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3, take away 1 will be 2. And finally, if x equal to -2, -2 squared is 4, because a negative times a negative is a positive, so that would be 4, times 2 is 8, plus -2 means it's going to come down to, so that'll be 6, take away 1 would be 5, so no, that wouldn't be right either. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our next question, question number 14. So question number 14 says the graph of y equals x squared plus 6x is drawn, so someone's drawn it, and the x coordinate of a point on the graph is -2. Write down the coordinates of the point. So, okay, so we've got the x coordinate at the point. So remember the coordinates in the form x and then y, the x coordinate and then the y coordinate. Now we know the x coordinate is equal to -2. So that means this point is -2 something, and we need to find out what the something is. So to find out what the something is, the y is, we just need to take the value of x, which is -2, and substitute it in here. So that'd be -2 squared, just squaring the value of x, and then plus 6x would be 6 times -2. So -2 squared, that's -2 times a -2, which would be 4, plus, and then 6 times negative 2 would be equal to negative 12, so it's going to be plus negative 12. So we've got 4 plus negative 12, so we're adding a negative, so it's going to go back down, and it'll go down to negative 8. So that means the y-coordinate would be negative 8. So that means the coordinates of the point would be negative 2, negative 8. And that's it. Okay, let's look at our last question, question number 15. Okay, question number 15. Question number 15 is a calculator question, and this is the graph of y equals x squared plus x plus 7 is drawn. And the y-coordinates of 2 points on the graph are equal to 49. So because obviously this is a U-shaped parabola, it must have 2 particular points that have got a height of 49. So there must be this point, perhaps something 49, and then this point, which is something 49. Okay, so these 2 points have got the same height of 49, and we need to work out what the x coordinates are. And we've been asked to write down the coordinates of the 2 points. We need to find these x coordinates. So we know that the y coordinate is 49. So it means that y is 49. So let's replace the y with 49. So we've got 49 equals x squared plus x plus 7. And then if we solve this, so let's take away 49 from both sides of this equation, because when you've got a quadratic, it's great if it equals 0. So 49 take away 49 is 0. And on the right hand side of the equation, we've got x squared plus x, and then we've got 7, but we're going to take away 49, so it'll be minus 42. So that's fantastic. So we've now got a quadratic equaling 0. So let's hopefully try and factorize this right hand side. So if we can factorize that, that'll be great. So 0 equals, and then bracket, 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 bracket. So let's see if this quadratic factorizes. And if you need to recap factorizing quadratics, go to Corbettmaths and go to video number 117. Video number 117 goes through this topic of how to factorize quadratics. So because this is x squared, so it's quite a nice quadratic, we're going to put x's at the front of both brackets. And in terms of this number and this number, they're going to times together to be negative 42. And they're going to add together to be, because it's plus x, that's plus 1x, that means they're going to add together to be 1. So we're looking for two numbers that times together to be negative 42 and add together to be 1. So I'm thinking that's going to be equal to negative 6 and 7, because negative 6 times 7 is negative 42, and negative 6 plus 7 is equal to 1. So that means it's going to be x minus 6 and x plus 7. So that's fantastic. So we've factorized a quadratic. Now we know that these two brackets will times together to be 0. So that means that either of the brackets are equal to 0. So it means that here, if this bracket is equal to 0, it means that x would be equal to 6. So x would be equal to 6. Or here we're going to have that x would be equal to negative 7, because negative 7 plus 7 is equal to 0. So that's fantastic. So we've found the values of x. The x is equal to 6 or x is equal to negative 7. So there are x coordinates. So if we go back up here, this one here must be negative 7. So negative 7 across from 49 up. And this point must be the point with coordinates 6, 49. 6 across from 49 up. And that's it. So they're the coordinates of those 2 points. So let's write that down. Negative 7, 49. And 6, 49. And that's it. And that's it. So these have been the video solutions to the Corbettmaths Practice Questions on quadratic graphs, so drawing quadratic graphs. If you need any extra help on this topic, if you go to Corbettmaths and go to the videos and worksheet section and scroll down to video number 264, there's a dedicated video tutorial on how to draw quadratic graphs. Alternatively, you can scan this QR code. But in this video, we focus on the video solutions to the practice questions. I really hope you found this video useful. If you have found it useful, please like it and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.